Hattie.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, we are back after some crazy weather, blowing out Carrie's internet. Renee, I'm sorry. I know you had a death in the family and aunt, right? So we had a couple weeks there where we had stuff come up, but and is your family doing okay? And
yeah, they're okay. It was one of those. The last few years were really rough, so it was kind of it never feels great, but
right.
Sometimes it's the best thing. So
yeah, that's rough. How old was she?
She was almost 80.
Okay. Okay.
So
so not old. I mean, I used to think that 80s was old, but
right.
My sister's 77, so I got a new perspective on old.
No, the older I get, the older gets, or the older old gets.
Yeah, she was bedridden for a couple of years, so I mean, it was pretty rough. So
yeah, that is rough. All right. Well,
and it's a long drive to Colorado.
Oh, so you drove.
Yeah, it was 9 hours. So the way that the flights work, it would have taken us just as long to fly there. By the time we drove to the airport and then took connecting flights to get there and stuff. So we were just like, if we drive, we can. I took a cooler full of meat. I take my own food.
Yeah, might as well.
My dad's like, "What do you think? We're not going to feed you?"
Like, always be prepared.
That's true. And we eat a strange diet. At least it's strange to other people.
I'm like, I hate coming to your house and eating like 3 pounds of bacon when when this is our normal life.
Right. And it's expensive, and most people don't buy bacon in bulk.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right. What's new with you, Carrie? I know you managed to get through the crazy storm there in Tennessee and the ice and all of that. And
we had major power outages all over. And like one of my friends who lives on the other side in the same neighborhood, he didn't have power for 3 days. So he stayed with me. And I luckily have a fireplace. I had power, but he didn't. But I have a fireplace. So when I heard that it went from snow to ice, or, that's what they were predicting, my son, bless him, Hunter, if you happen to watch, I love you. Thank you. For part of my Christmas present, he brought me this big load of firewood. So I had plenty of firewood. So I brought a bunch inside and put it in my little, I guess, laundry area. You could call it laundry closet, where the washing machine and water heater are. And I just stuck firewood in there. And then I've got another thing, whatever you want to call it, a rack. And I put other wood in the living room too. And I had plenty of starter logs to go with it. And so I was prepared because I lived through the great ice storm, let's say, of 94. It was in 94. And I was actually pregnant with my son during that one. And at that time, we did not have power for 2 weeks. And ice is just lethal. It's very heavy, and it just makes the trees crack and break.
Dangerous.
Yeah. It's really bad. So, but yes, made it unscathed. I did have power. My power went out, I think, for like 2 minutes. And about the time I was getting ready to build a fire, it came back on, and then it never went out. So I was thankful.
That's good. Well, I was in California for like a month. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. I went down there. Any of you ladies need a man?
No.
I'm good.
I got one.
I have enough. I would like to ask you how the house is going.
Okay, so the close of escrow got pushed out 2 weeks, not from us. It's our buyers. Their buyers were getting funds to help them with their down payment from overseas, and the bank is putting a 2-week hold on their funds. And so it pushed out the close for everybody by two weeks. So, which is okay with me because it gives me extra time to get all the packing done. But it also is making it so that the actual move occurs when I'm going to be in South Carolina for the Healing Humanity meetup there.
Oh, man.
Of course it does.
Yeah. So we'll close escrow, and then I'll have a day basically to do some help get some stuff over there. But then the rest of it is beyond everybody else. But we have a lot of people volunteering to help, and it's just going to be a little bit hard because when I leave for South Carolina, I'm going to be saying goodbye forever to this house that we've lived in for now almost 14 years. So it's a little bit bittersweet. I mean, I'm excited about the move and to have all the property and everything. But yeah, I'll come home too. And so when I come home, so here's what happens. So sorry, I got a little runny nose. We were going to be having all the flooring done right away. But now that we had to push things out 2 weeks, they can't come right away to do the flooring.
Oh.
And so we are going to have to wait to actually move our stuff into the house. We're going to live in the apartment upstairs. And while they're doing because they have to not just rip out all the existing flooring, but they have to level. And that takes like 48 hours to fully dry before anybody can walk on it. So yeah, we're going to be living upstairs for a little while. Just the 4 of us in a little 700 and some square foot apartment.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of flooring, I'm actually going to get brand new flooring, and I was originally going to do it just downstairs. But now I'm getting engineered hardwood in my whole house except for my upstairs bathroom. Yeah. And it's going to be my birthday present to myself. My birthday's in March. So I put the down payment so they could order the product. And I have a couple of friends who used this company, and the price is reasonable and they are very reliable. And I've actually seen the floors. I've seen their work in person, physically. I've actually seen it, not just pictures. So that's pretty exciting. And so, yeah, I've already got like part of most of my closet space cleaned out. I've got a few things I've still got to get out of there, but it's a major thing when you do that, when you have the floors done. And
it's expensive. It's
expensive and it's major. Yeah. You might as well just about be moving.
Oh, I know.
Because this does
because they got to move everything out. Yeah.
So you got to get anything that sits on the floor up. Now they will move furniture, so that's included in the cost and everything.
Well, our flooring people are lucky because it is an empty house and we're moving everything. Now the garage is almost 2,000 square feet in and of itself.
Wow! Oh my God.
I know, it's this huge, massive garage. So we're going to be putting our furniture in the garage, other than a few things that we're going to put in the apartment. So anyways.
That's great, though. So that means you don't have to worry about where the furniture goes. And then
no.
Yeah, that's great.
And there's a whole shop, too. So all of the stuff that was in our current garage is going to go in the shop.
Nice.
And so we have plenty of room for our furniture in the garage to hang out there until we can get it into the house. But I'll do a video tour before, like once we close escrow, we'll do a video tour so that everyone can see the before of this crazy house and all of the original 1979 everything. I don't know if all the appliances are 1979 because there's no like avocado green or burnt orange as far as the appliances go. Like I grew up in a house where it was an avocado green stove.
Yellow, my house.
Yours was yellow. Yeah. It's not that. I have a feeling they did update the appliances, but maybe in the 80s or early 90s. I don't know because the stovetop is white. But the carpet, we've definitely got the burnt orange shag carpet and the chocolate brown shag carpet and, weird colors and stuff. So all that's coming out. And then I've been measuring because trying to figure out how we're going to fit our furniture in these octagon shaped rooms and in these, layout with no right angles. And
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, but the view, oh my gosh, we had the flooring installers over the other day and they're like, wow, this is such a beautiful property. So I'm really excited to share it with everybody. But all right, well, let's get going. We have some people who are asking us, what on earth are you guys doing? So, all right. So we are going through this book. We have this nerdy study club. This is a medical textbook called Ketogenic, the Science of Therapeutic Carbohydrate Restriction in Human Health. And this is not a book club, so we did not read ahead. We are reading and discussing as we go. We are in chapter 3, which is the chapter on endocrine. So if you are here and you like nerdy science stuff, hopefully this will interest you. And so all 3 of us have chosen to eat a carnivore diet for our healing, but we are not like hardcore. Everybody in the world has to eat a carnivore diet, but we do agree that being in nutritional ketosis is something that's really beneficial for human beings. So this is what this particular textbook is all about. And so we left off, and we're on the type 1 diabetes section here. And I know before we were kind of questioning about like, why did they put type 1 diabetes, which is an autoimmune disease, in with the endocrine? But we kind of decided that there's a lot of overlap as far as the approach to management and the underlying, like, why this is a problem. Okay, so type 2 diabetes, your pancreas is still spitting out insulin, whereas type 1 diabetes, it's not. That you still have to manage your blood sugar and you still have to address those things. So I think we kind of decided we're okay with it being in this chapter. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I can start out reading if you'd like.
So we're on the therapeutic carbohydrate restriction section, right?
Mm-hmm. At the bottom of page 149, if there happens to be someone who's following along.
Yeah, we got some flirts in the chat here. Thank you very much.
I'll take a compliment.
I'll take a compliment any day. All righty, go ahead.
Okie doke. Therapeutic carbohydrate restriction. Evidence for the use of therapeutic carbohydrate restriction. The American Diabetes Association Standards of Care in Diabetes for 2021. I think we're going to get some updated stuff soon. But anyway, states that there is an inadequate research in type 1 diabetes to support one eating pattern over another at this time. However,
we have Dr. Berry's American Diabetes Society.
That's true. And that's much more, that's legit. That's based on the true science.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Evolutionary science. However, they do concede that reducing overall carbohydrate intake for individuals with diabetes has demonstrated the most evidence for improving glycemia and may be applied in a variety of eating patterns that meet individual needs and preferences. Numerous case studies, clinical trials, and review articles have shown benefits in patients who use low carbohydrate lifestyles in type 1 diabetes. Here we mention some of these for reference. Intervention studies. In a 1-year study, 24 patients with type 1 diabetes were enrolled, of which 22 completed the study. So it's 22 completed out of 24.
Yeah.
Patients reduced their carbohydrate intakes to 70 to 90 grams per day, were encouraged to monitor glucose concentrations at least 4 times daily, and insulin doses were adapted to the new regime regimen. Follow-up measurements were done at 3 and 12 months. The average HbA1c lowered from 7.5% to 6.4%. Mealtime insulin dosage reduced from 21.1 to 12.4 units, and the total daily dose of insulin reduced from 0.5 units per kilogram per day to 0.4 units per kilogram per day. Total cholesterol and LDL cholesterol concentrations were unchanged, whereas blood triglyceride concentrations were reduced by 16%. Hypoglycemic episodes reduced by 94% at 3 months and 84% by 1 year. The authors conclude that for motivated type 1 diabetes patients, this approach to therapy is feasible.
Okay.
What do y'all think about those results?
Well, I think they could have been better if they had had fewer carbs.
Yeah.
70 to 90 is still, I mean, I ate like 0. So it's still crazy high.
It is, yeah. And I mean, to get into nutritional ketosis, you need at least lower than 50. And a lot of people are now saying below 20
Right.
for, not everybody can even get into nutritional ketosis at below 50. And so I think that, I don't know why they chose that amount of carbs. I'd be curious to know why, but it seems like if you understanding ketogenic diets, and it's been like 100 years since there's been studies on ketogenic diets for epilepsy. So and you don't have to do the crazy high fat ketogenic diet for epilepsy, but they at least know, you need lower carbs than that to get into nutritional ketosis. But even so, it was still an improvement.
A pretty big improvement. Like when you look at the A1C from 7.5 to 6.4, and all you're talking about is 70 to 90 grams of carbs.
Right.
I mean, that's a pretty substantial drop in the A1C.
Right. And I think that one of the things with people with type 1 diabetes that talk about like, oh, well, they're concerned about not having having the hypoglycemic episodes, but they have their insulin, right? They're monitoring it carefully. And there's definitely plenty of people out there with type 1 diabetes who have gone full blown carnivore. Yep. And are able to cut their insulin levels, even your exogenous insulin levels down even further, and they don't have the crashes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw an interview with a guy on, I believe it was Dave Mack's channel, but don't hold me to that because I watch a lot of various interviews. But this was a while back, and this guy ate like, I don't know, it was like 75% fat. And he found that like he just didn't need like hardly, I don't remember the numbers, but I mean, his insulin needs were just like drastically reduced because his diet was primarily fat with almost like it's almost reversed, like some people, might have like, I don't know, like 30% fat or something. Well, his is like completely reversed, whereas he was having way more fat than the protein. And it also helped with mental health, which, is another thing.
Well, that
like
gets
Dr. Palmer, talks about that.
Yeah.
So I think the lower you can get, I think personally, the better.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And who would have thought cutting sugar and carbs would help? Yeah.
Right.
Well, the American Diabetes Association still wants people to eat carbs. And that's why Dr. Berry started his society, because it's like then the truth needs to get out there,
Right.
So.
It would just spare some, like I am terrified of needles. I cannot imagine having to give myself a shot. Now, obviously, if you're type 1 and you have to do it to live, you're going to do it. But if you're, type 2, or if type 2 has been in your family, like for me, that was just my worst. I was like, oh, the thought of having to stick myself with a needle like my mother did was just like, I'll do whatever I have to do to avoid that. So,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, a lot of people with type 1 diabetes have an insulin pump.
That's true. I suppose that technology's changed a lot.
Yeah, but that didn't used to be the case.
Right.
So they used to have to be constantly checking and injecting and all that. So
in a 12-week randomized crossover study of 14 type 1 diabetic patients, of whom 10 completed the study, the intake of 98 grams carbohydrate was compared to 246 grams of carbohydrate per day. Good Lord.
Could you even imagine eating that many carbs? I don't even, like, I'm sure we used to, but I can't even imagine.
I don't think I ever really, maybe, I don't know. I definitely did.
I was I didn't eat very much meat at all before. I ate mostly garbage carbs.
Yep.
Yeah. Breads and pastas and stuff like that.
I mean, not saying I didn't eat them. I certainly did, but I just don't think maybe I did eat that many. I mean, I guess they can creep up on you.
Yeah, and then you add
Results show-
sauces and added sugars and all of
Yeah.
that stuff, and it's pretty easy to get to that number.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's true. They do hide, Results showed reduced variability and less hypoglycemia in the lower carbohydrate arm and weight loss of 2 kilograms in
Low carb diets.
in low carb diet compared to a gain of 2.6 kilograms in the higher carbohydrate diet group. There was no effect on HbA1c or on the CVD risk markers, but the total daily dose of insulin was reduced from 43.2 to 33.6. The authors concluded that a reduction in carbohydrate intake helped to reduce weight, glucose variability, and hypoglycemic events. In one retrospective study, 33 patients self-selected to follow a very low carbohydrate diet. Okay, here we go, which was designed to be eucaloric. I guess meaning it doesn't matter how many calories you eat, they're considering the carbs, right? Okay. The number of patients achieving HbA1c of less than 7% rose from 12% to 57%, and there was a statistically significant decrease in the number of units of daily insulin used in hypoglycemic episodes experienced. There was identical weight loss. Incidental.
Yeah.
There was incidental weight loss among some participants. The authors conclude that a low carbohydrate approach appears safe and effective with medical supervision and appropriate adjustments in insulin dose.
Yeah, so getting under 50 grams gave them further improvement.
And I think that that's the biggest thing that everybody has to remember is that, that it has to be done with medical supervision, because your insulin, as you reduce those carbs, your insulin is going to need to be reduced as well, so you don't get bottomed out.
Right. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I know with type 1 diabetics, just the ones that I've taken care of, I know how much they self-manage like crazy.
Yep.
A lot of them take their doctor's, dosage as just a suggestion,
Yeah.
Like, I got this. But still, yes, they do need to be doing this in conjunction with working with their doctor.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, cross-sectional observational studies. In one study, type 1 diabetic patients who were participants in the Facebook group Type 1 Grit, I know who that is. Okay, responded to an online survey. The study evaluated glycemic control among children and adults who consumed a very low-carb diet or a ketogenic diet. There were 316 respondents, of whom 131 were parents of children with type 1 diabetes. The study found that the average use of low-carb diets was 2.2 years. The mean carbohydrate intake was 36 grams daily, and the mean HbA1c was 5.7%.
Really good.
2% of the patients had been hospitalized. Berenstein, that's his name, had been hospitalized in the previous year. 1% for hypoglycemic episodes and 1% for diabetic ketoacidosis. Patients reported high concentrations of satisfaction with their health and control, but noted that relationships with their diabetes care providers were often strained. Imagine that.
With all those results, and to have strained relationships, seriously?
They just
Personally, if I were a doctor, I just think it would reflect very well on me if I had a patient who was doing that much better. Even if I didn't advise them that way, if they found a way that worked, I'd be just like, keep doing what you're doing. I mean, if I were a typical doctor, but
it's very sad.
Yeah.
The authors conclude that more studies are required to validate these findings. Most studies look at cardiovascular disease risk factors and in general tend to find that the total LDL and HDL cholesterol concentrations may increase, but that blood triglyceride concentrations tend to reduce in type 1 diabetic patients who use low-carb diets. However, very few studies report on actual cardiovascular disease outcomes. In an interesting study, Ahola et al. Evaluated a subject of type 1 diabetic patients who follow a low carbohydrate, less than 130 grams a day diet and compared them to a matched population of 69 patients from the study. They compared the cardiovascular disease risk factors and showed that the patients in the low-carb diet arm had lower body mass index, reduced blood glucose variability, and lower diastolic blood pressure values. Women had higher HDL cholesterol concentrations. Men had slightly raised total and non-HDL cholesterol concentrations in comparison to women. However, the data indicate that the rate of cardiovascular disease events in the low-carb diet arm was lower than the high carbohydrate diet arm. So it's 10.1% versus 17.6%. But this was not reported in the discussion.
Why not?
Right?
Wasn't that the point of the study?
You would think.
I guess that, yeah, they just said that this study was interesting. So I don't know if that was actually it just says very few studies report on actual cardiovascular disease outcomes. And they just said this is an interesting study. So I'm thinking that maybe it was for other purposes, like maybe measuring their A1C and stuff like that, and not really, they weren't thinking about the cardiovascular disease, but then the data was reported, but they didn't, the data was like written down, or it was in the study, but they just didn't tell anybody. Because it doesn't really say what the purpose of the study was.
How do you reconcile that, right? Without getting a conspiracy theory hat, getting your tinfoil hat out.
Oh, I wear a tinfoil hat. I admit it.
You have to. I mean, how do you make sense of this? Like, why would they not report? And that was only at less than 130 grams a day, which is still fairly high, but they were still seeing these. And I think the significance of this should be shouted from the rooftops, because diabetes is a huge risk factor for cardiovascular disease. I mean, it's like one of the top risk factors. Isn't it more than smoking?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like way up there on the list of risk factors. And so they found that you can lower your carbs and decrease your risk factors for cardiovascular disease, but they didn't say anything.
And of course, I wonder what some of them, like they talk about
you don't have a tinfoil hat, there's something wrong. Yes, I agree.
There are so many things that I have been called a conspiracy theorist on that have proved to be true.
Turns out, yeah.
Many things, not just diet related.
Oh, I'm in the same boat. And sometimes the more you know, the more you realize you should be questioning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I read a lot, and I don't read just one point of view either. I mean, I read a lot, just about a lot of things. And I think it's good for people to do that, to just broaden your mind.
Oops, not the foil hat.
Oh, yeah. I've got it. It's right over there.
Yeah, I tell you.
I just don't wear it on camera, but
sometimes I think that you have to put blinders on if you're going to read stuff like this and still think that our healthcare system is out for our best interest. It's like when they're hiding very important, results of studies from us,
because even if they didn't do the study, like if this, like I said, it really doesn't say what the purpose of it was. But if you found that would be an important thing to tell people about.
Yeah.
And it was buried probably on page 268 in a very tiny font.
Yeah. What'd you say, Renee?
You know that we don't get the real results of any study that's done because there's always an agenda, and
Yeah.
We just, that it's never reported the way that it should be reported. You don't get the full story. Whatever matches what they're trying to do is what you get.
Or it doesn't get published at all.
Right. Or it gets completely buried, or you drop like 8 countries out of the study because they didn't follow what the rest of the.
Right. Like Ansel Keys.
Yep.
Yes. And that was actually mentioned when they were talking about the dietary guidelines changes. During the press conference, one of them, and I don't remember who it was who said it, but talked about the Ansel Keys. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am in an alternate universe where they talked about the flawed science.
So they actually brought up the fact
that
he ignored most of the countries in his study.
He mentioned Ansel Keys and the flawed studies. Yep.
Okay, I have a really good question here. Do you guys eat meat?
All meat.
Only meat.
All the time.
Yes, that's all we eat. Well, I mean, and the fat from meat.
The fat, yeah. The fat that comes on it.
Yeah, that's how I found my healing. So, all right, cool.
So this study seems to confirm that low-carb diets are safe from a cardiovascular disease perspective.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, Renee, you want to pick up on the case reports?
Sure. A patient who had type 1 diabetes for 41 years started a low-carb diet after visiting Dr. Bernstein in New York in 1998 and was able to reduce and stabilize his blood glucose concentrations, reduce the hemoglobin A1C to 5.6%, have fewer hypoglycemic episodes, lose weight, and experience less hunger and a better quality of life. At the time of publishing the article in 2003, he had maintained this regimen for 4 years. A case report from 2014 describes a 19-year-old with type 1 diabetes who starts a Paleolithic ketogenic diet 20 days after diagnosis and rapidly normalized blood glucose concentrations and came off insulin therapy.
That was the study done by Sophia Clemens. I read that case study on the website, their website. That's out of Hungary. And I'm curious to see what would happen if we implemented this with people who are newly diagnosed, because they actually found that his pancreas started producing insulin again. His beta cells like woke up and started producing insulin again.
Because you reduce that insulin need and maybe it gave a chance for it to restart. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And this, even though they call it a Paleolithic ketogenic diet, she explains that that's actually beef high fat diet. It's really a carnivore diet. She just called it that. That was actually before the carnivore diet was even termed. Yeah.
After 6 months, he still did not require insulin therapy, but unfortunately no further follow-up was provided. I'd be really interested to know where he's at today.
Yeah, definitely. Me too. And I wonder too, does that, like, you know how it is with autoimmune disease, that people ask you, like, are you getting cured by eating this way? I think the only real test is if you stop eating this way, if your autoimmune disease doesn't come back, then okay, maybe you can say yes. And if it's over a period of time and it still doesn't come back, but I'm not convinced. I think there's a lot of people who are just, they just are super sensitive and they need to keep their diet really strict.
Right. Well, and my husband and I have that's a continual argument we have, because he says that I was cured. And I say that I'm not going to take a chance of finding out whether I'm cured or not. Like, I'm not going back to eating normal because God forbid that the disease comes back. Seriously, and I can't guarantee that it's gone. Like, no, my neurologist is like, you're just in remission and this is a miracle. And I'm like, no, not a miracle, but because nobody knows. Like, I'm not going to take the chance of it coming back.
No, I'm not taking chances either. I'm like, yeah, like why would I do that?
Yeah.
So.
But you're right. The unfortunate thing is the only way we would know is to stop.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to go with, I am better and I feel better and my quality of life is better. So I'm just going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the only reason why I would ever consider stopping is if I started feeling worse. and felt that I needed to kind of analyze and make adjustments, but I have not. It's been almost 3 years and I'm not at that point. Still feel great.
Right.
Yep.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially after you've worked so hard to fix it.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. A case report of 3 older patients aged 36, 40, and 38, respectively, who started on a low carb diet soon after type 1 diagnosis, confirmed with antibody positive results, reports type 1 diabetes remission. The patients all achieved adequate blood glucose control, allowing them to stop insulin therapy, 1 for 4 years of follow-up and 1 for 15 months of follow-up. The third was still able to maintain control after 4 years of follow-up, even though he had restarted insulin therapy after 2 years. So they still did good regardless.
Yeah.
In another case report, a 37-year-old man with a history of 20 years of type 1 diabetes and 4 years following a ketogenic diet, average hemoglobin A1C was 5%, no DKA, no severe hypoglycemic events, completed a 11-kilometer cycle ride in 20 days, but was still able to maintain glycemic stability.
Wow.
Wow, that's incredible.
4,011 kilometers. That's crazy.
The authors reported that his diet on the ride contained carbohydrates at 11%, protein 31%, and fat 58%. He used a continuous glucose monitor, which showed he maintained his glucose concentration of an average of 6.1, which is 110 milligrams per deciliter, which is really good. With a standard deviation of 2.1 mLs or 37.8 milligrams per deciliter. For the 10 days, he experienced 1 episode of symptomatic hypoglycemia, which he reversed by ingesting 9.9 grams of glucose.
Yeah, his blood sugar was actually pretty good because when you exercise, your blood sugar does go up, and that's really like intense exercise. 10 days of riding.
Yeah.
That is incredible and very encouraging.
And I know with these really intense athletes that do these long, crazy, intense physical activity, they do usually end up taking some carbohydrate to boost their glucose because they will run out of their ketone stores and lose energy. If they want to compete, they can still finish, but a lot of them will go ahead and add some carbs to spike their fuel. Yeah. So interesting.
Ready?
Yep.
All right. A number of reviews have examined the use of total carbohydrate restriction in patients with type 1 diabetes. Turton et al.'s systematic review of low carbohydrate diets for type 1 diabetes included 9 studies. Unfortunately, they found that due to heterogeneity of the studies, they were unable to determine any significant outcome differences between low carbohydrate diets and high carbohydrate diets. However, they did note that in all the studies, the total daily dose of insulin was reduced in those following the low carbohydrate diets. They conclude that more studies are needed to evaluate low carbohydrate diets in type 1 diabetes patients, and that these should evaluate 5 specific outcomes, namely a reduction in hemoglobin A1C, no increase in hypoglycemia, a reduction in total daily insulin use, a reduction in BMI, and improved quality of life.
So what is the heterogeneity of these the studies?
They're different. There's differences in them.
They were too different to be able to compare them.
Yeah, so there were too many confounding factors between the study to draw definite conclusions.
So there were too many variables there. Okay.
Yeah.
The studies weren't close enough together.
Yeah.
Bola et al. Reviewed low carbohydrate and ketogenic diets in type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. The review included many of the studies discussed above. Their conclusions are cautiously optimistic about the use of low carbohydrate diets in type 1 diabetes. They tend to emphasize the quality of carbohydrates, advocating low GI glycemic foods, although they do suggest that quantity is also relevant. They suggest that in motivated patients and informed, motivated medical professionals, low carbohydrate diets are a great tool to use to achieve adequate control and reduce long-term complications in type 1 diabetes patients. As is usual in all of the trials reviewed, there is concern about the increase in LDL cholesterol concentrations, yet no trials actually show actual evidence that cardiovascular disease worsens with increased LDL cholesterol concentrations in type 1 diabetic patients who use low carbohydrate diets.
And for that matter, there are studies out there that do show that there isn't a correlation, even for non-diabetics, with LDL cholesterol and cardiovascular disease, that the real connection there is their blood sugar and the insulin and, these other factors. So that there was been studies that showed that patients that had the higher cholesterol often did better.
Women especially.
Yeah. So we've that connection has been debunked, but it's not common knowledge yet that it's been debunked.
Yeah.
And
hopefully it will become.
hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have faith. If we're talking about Ansel Keys at the White House in a press conference, then I have faith.
That gives me hope.
Yeah, I about died when I heard, and I don't remember if it was Oz or RFK. I don't remember which one, and they had somebody else there, but there were several of the health people there at this press conference thing. And sure, I about, my jaw about hit the floor when I heard that they were talking about the flawed science and mentioned Ansel Keys. And I was just like, it was incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. All right.
And thank you.
An excellent review by Scott et al. Discusses the use of low carbohydrate diets in type 1 diabetes patients and evaluated potential benefits: weight loss, reduced hypoglycemia, less hyperglycemia, reduced insulin doses and reduced insulin resistance, and potential risks: increased DKA, increased total and LDL cholesterol concentrations, possible nutritional deficiencies, growth abnormalities in children, eating, and psychological disorders. They reviewed the use of low carbohydrate diets in athletes without type 1 diabetes and provide some evidence for the use of low carbohydrate diets in athletes with type 1 diabetes. Some physiological mechanisms are provided which suggest that low carbohydrate diets may be effective in type 1 diabetic patients, especially in lowering glycemic concentrations and enhancing the use of adipose stores for energy during exercise. They show intriguing evidence that training in the fasted state may actually have overall benefits in lowering blood glucose concentrations. They also promote the use of regular monitoring and even continuous glucose monitor usage. They note that more evidence for low carbohydrate diet use is needed in type 1 diabetes, but indicate that low carbohydrate diets less than 130 grams of carbs a day is a viable option to help control blood glucose concentrations in type 1 diabetes patients.
I'm wondering, and this is something obviously more studying needs to be done, but I'm wondering if they're they're seeing benefits from having their carbs lower, but they're still not necessarily in nutritional ketosis. So I'm wondering what benefits are they missing from not taking it to that level? Somebody who's type 1 diabetic, are they still at long-term risk for neuropathy, for retinopathy, for gastroparesis, for all these other conditions and everything, if they don't get into nutritional ketosis? Because that's really protective.
Yep, I agree.
Well, but
then really awesome to see a study where they actually get into ketosis.
But you hear this part about the possible nutritional deficiencies, cholesterol and eating and psychological disorders. And I'm not saying that the psychological disorders don't work, but there is, I don't remember the young lady's name now. I haven't seen any of her videos in a while, but the young lady who did have an eating disorder, and there are many, but this one particular girl, and she started eating steak every day, and she ended up like she was started actually putting on some weight because she was very, very thin, and she'd been hospitalized a few times for an eating disorder, and that she found that it helped her.
Yeah.
So
there's people who talk about how it's another eating disorder, or it's not good for somebody who is restricting to have them do this type of restrictive diet. And I just watched an interesting interview recently with people who had eating disorders and who now work in that space of coaching people with eating disorders. And they said that the standard of care for treatment teaches them that they're not cured until they're able to moderate eating any food. But yet the success rate is dismal with people. They may achieve success while they're inpatient and they're in a program, but the failure rate is really high. And so it's like, okay, you're not going to necessarily be able to avoid the whole restriction component of it. But if you put them on a way of eating, even if it is restrictive, that heals their brain, then that can at least give them hope that they can actually get over it. Because these other ways of eating, if you keep eating a variety of foods and you're just forced to come up with willpower, which you don't have, you're not healing your brain, So it's like, it's an argument, but I don't think it carries a whole lot of weight.
But they use that argument and they try to, and I think part of it is nefarious. They try to turn a ketogenic diet, they try to make it look like people who follow either the ketogenic diet or very low carb or even carnivore, especially actually, but that you're somehow cuckoo because you're on this fad diet and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is just the narrative that had been prevalent for so long. I do think that there's progress being made, and it is going to take time.
So Bill says, I thought that type 1 and or type 2 have a chance of ketoacidosis.
They do.
But it's very uncommon in type 2 diabetics. I don't know. You're Renee, you guys do a lot with diabetes. What are your thoughts on this one?
I mean, ketoacidosis is just uncontrolled high blood sugar, where you get, when your blood sugar gets so uncontrolled and so high that you produce, like people think that when you talk about being in ketosis that you're talking about ketoacidosis, and they're two totally separate things. But I think the type 1 and type 2, I mean, if your sugars are uncontrolled, you have the chance.
Yeah, it's just much more common in type 1 diabetics.
I was going to say, personally, having worked in an ER, mostly it was my type 1 diabetics that you see come in with DKA, not usually the type 2.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something going on. Would you find, and I never worked in ER, but would you find that there was usually something else going on with the type 2 diabetics?
Usually both of them, when they came in that way, they're already sick with like a stomach bug or some kind of a vomiting thing where they got themselves so dehydrated that their blood glucose concentration went way up, and then they couldn't get control of it. They couldn't get their sugars back under control. But usually it was from, most of the time, except when I worked in the pediatric ICU, we got a lot of our type 1 diabetic kids in with ketoacidosis, just because they're not, and let me preface this with, okay, I've been a nurse for a long time. So that was back before CGMs. That was back before pumps were a really big thing. In fact, for our kids to get pumps, like they had to prove for years that they could control their sugars before their insurance even approved the pump, which is crazy because now they put everybody in a pump, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Especially
but that wasn't the way it was back in the early 2000s. So we've come a long way.
Yeah. So with adults, there's usually a confounding factor.
Right. They're usually sick or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're connected to the extent of there's ketones involved, but with DKA, the ketones are way
Like
higher.
10 and above, usually, at least. They're really high. Like for us, our goal in a nutritional ketogenic diet is like 0.5 to 3. That's where we really would like to stay, is in that range of 0.5 to 3. That's where we're burning really good ketones. We're burning our fat. We're getting the autophagy. We're getting all of the great things from the ketogenic. But once you go above 3, then you are under eating or something else is going
A
on.
lot of people with fasting will go above 3. And you really, I mean, to me, if you get to 6, you really need to be breaking, even over 5, you really need to be breaking your fast.
I will break my fast at 4.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even comfortable going.
It really depends on who you talk to, but I think, the whole idea of higher is better is absolutely not the case. In fact, a lot of people who've been eating carnivore for a long time, they don't necessarily produce a ton of ketones. Your body's using them really efficiently, and you can check your blood and you're not necessarily going to have a lot. You don't really need to have a lot show up in your blood work and your finger stick to have it still be effective for you.
Right. And Bill, Google is not right.
Nope.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing we don't listen to Google. Maybe, I know nowadays Google has the AI feature too. So you can always argue and say, I didn't say DKA.
Right.
I said nutritional ketosis.
Right.
Yeah. If that's scary though, if Google thinks ketosis.
Yeah, but Lynn, I'm going to be honest with you. Do you know how many doctors I have worked with and dealt with in my professional career that get ketosis and DKA mixed up too? And they're like, oh no, why are you trying to go for ketosis? That's the most dangerous thing in the world. And I'm like, okay, I didn't say I wanted to be DKA. Like, I didn't say I was going to become diabetic and go into DKA. I said, I'm going, there's such a difference, but even I still, there's doctors that still will say that.
Which is crazy because, I mean, don't they have to learn about a ketogenic diet, at least about epilepsy? They have to at least, I imagine they'd have to at least read that it's a thing.
I don't know. It's pretty sad. Okay, we got two paragraphs left. We can make it through.
We got this.
Okay. On a cautionary tale, Debach et al. Highlights 6 cases of children and some families who followed low carbohydrate diets after a diagnosis of type 1 diabetes. At the onset of the paper states that endocrinologists and dietitians across Australia and New Zealand were invited to describe type 1 diabetes cases where adherence to a restricted carbohydrate diet was believed to result in endocrine and metabolic consequences. They reported that these children were found to have a failure to grow and also worsen cardiovascular disease risk factors. It is also clear that all patients were actually on low-calorie diets or underfed and would have benefited from sympathetic help and advice on how to improve their energy and nutritional intake while remaining on a relatively lower carbohydrate diet. The only advice given was to counsel the patients to increase their carbohydrate intakes. 2 families were clearly upset with the services, and one even left the clinic and was lost to follow-up. So
interesting.
So they never said, well, if you're going to drop your carbohydrates, increase your fat intake.
Right.
Like you have, I mean, so they became malnourished.
Yeah.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
However, in an overview, Gallagher et al. Reviewed the medical and physiological considerations for low carbohydrate diets in youth with type 1 diabetes. They evaluated the potential benefits and risks and highlighted the need for individualized and family dietary habits to be aligned, and for healthcare providers to be thoughtful and supportive to families who may choose total carbohydrate restriction. They highlight the potential for eating disorders, which is an area all providers should be aware of when advising youth about type 1 diabetes. Overall, the evidence shows that for motivated patients and healthcare providers, it is possible to control type 1 diabetes, safely achieving almost normal glycemia using total carbohydrate restriction. All healthcare providers should be prepared to offer this lifestyle therapy to patients and to support patients who wish to follow this therapy.
And just wanted to clarify the TCR, you weren't here for the earlier phases of the book, is therapeutic carbohydrate restriction. So
I like total better.
it's easier to say.
True. Read that.
Actually, I have it written here on my cheat note. I just didn't look at it.
Oh, Bill says I have a feral kitten that is currently between my feet laying down. Her name is Ketosis. Cute.
Oh.
Cute. Awesome. Good. Well, this has been an interesting one.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see, where are we at with chapter 3? I know we got to be we made some decent progress today.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Oh, why do I have 2 bookmarks in here? Okay, let me see. How are we? What is the next section for chapter? Oh, guess what? The next one after type 1 diabetes is polycystic ovarian syndrome and infertility.
Mm.
Well, I had PCOS, so this would have been an interesting one for me back then in my 20s.
The majority of my patients have PCOS. The female majority.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. So are they seeing benefits from lowering their carbs?
It's not just lowering carbs, it's losing weight too. Like, I mean, everything matters, but the ones that actually do the low carbohydrate do a really good job. And we have a couple of them that got pregnant. We have a couple of them that are trying to get pregnant. And I mean, it's just like Dr. Kilt says,
Mm-hmm.
you can get pregnant with it. You just have to manage it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, I wouldn't have my adopted kids if I had had good advice when I was in my 20s trying to get pregnant. So it is what it is.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate all the comments in the chat today. Some new people showing up, being a little flirty here. We'll take it. So hopefully we won't have any more climate issues with the ice, and hopefully we will not have any more funerals. I will be traveling in in a few weeks I'll be traveling again. So
I have a Hawaii trip coming up in 3 weeks.
Ooh, wonderful.
Maybe it's a month. It's a month still away.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice. Go back and visit friends and stuff.
My son seems to think he needs to see us for his spring break.
Oh.
And when I said, well, I'll fly you out here, he was like, can't you come here? So,
oh, gee, rough.
When we haven't been home, and like we left a year and a half ago, so it's time to go home and see family.
Yeah.
My husband has an aunt and uncle who are in their 90s there, so we'd like to go see them.
Yeah, understandable.
Oh, that'll be wonderful.
Yeah. But as far as we know, there's nothing going on next week. I've got lots of packing to do. And I've got the intensive portion of our Nutrition Network course that's going to be officially starting at the beginning of March. So we've got an orientation coming up in a couple weeks, but the official section of it isn't until March. It's going to be kind of intense. And this is our textbook. So
see, that's amazing. You looked up on that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm getting, my lectures are the people who wrote this textbook. So it's pretty cool. And so hopefully I won't be too stressed out losing hair and all that. Dr. Nelson texted earlier today and he looked at the curriculum and he goes, it looks like we're going to be getting equivalent to a master's degree. So I'm a little nervous.
That's awesome though.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not doing it alone. So that's good. So, all righty. Well, we will be wishing everybody farewell for this week, and we should be able to meet again next week. I don't see anything getting in the way, but if something does, then we'll postpone it. Life happens.
Life happens.